All right, so Vic mentioned something really important that you need to understand about data science and healthcare, and that's medical coding. So also sign up for an account at UMLS, so you can get RxNorm, Moix code, SNOMED, ICD-10, all of those codes are listed there, free of charge, as long as you use it for research purposes only. All right, so that was a great hint, so very good. So the great thing about this panel is I had to come all the way to Atlanta to meet Lindsay. All right, so and I was at the awards session a couple of weeks ago to see that. So it was an amazing experience to see data science come along as it has it in Nashville as well as here in Atlanta. So I have the unique privilege of knowing the founder of her company, and we met at Starbucks almost 8 years ago to talk about the founding of this company and what he wanted to do around pain management and opioids. So, and the other nice thing about this moderation session is I can just say doctor to everybody and I'll be right. So that's good. So, well, you know, it's PhDs. So Lindsay, tell us what opportunities and problems that you think are facing healthcare as you work with these providers to really help stem this opioid epidemic and what's going on in our country.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you, Todd. Definitely thank you to the organizers for inviting us locally and from Nashville. So problems and opportunities. I think, Todd, you've kind of stolen my thunder a little bit with your presentation, unfortunately, so I don't know if I will have much to add. It was wonderful. I think a theme that we've heard here tonight, first of all, with the problem is data. We've talked about data liquidity has been mentioned. I won't belabor that point. I do think data is certainly one of the challenges that we face in the data science community at large, maybe not just in healthcare. But one thing I will add to the data piece is that I think it can be and will be really powerful for us to combine healthcare data with other types of data. I know at Axial, the idea of social determinant data is very hot right now. I would even extend that into financial data that we can marry with patient healthcare data to sort of understand very specific poor outcomes for patients and even good outcomes. I don't think that we focus on good outcomes a lot in healthcare. We don't really talk about it. But certainly modeling from a data science perspective, good outcomes that we want to enhance and promote is something that we kind of miss. I think another challenge that I don't really know that's been brought up here tonight, and it might be a little provocative, is adoptability. Sorry?
We like provocative.
Okay, I'll be a little provocative. So adoptability of data science, I think, is a real challenge, particularly in healthcare. I believe that there's a lot of distrust around data science outputs. When we talk about classifying disease states and predicting specific outcomes, I don't know that users, practitioners, nurses, particularly other types of users, really know what to do with that data. I don't think they know how to interpret it. We get asked often about drivers of specific outcomes and what does that mean? And really kind of looking underneath the hood of different data science models is challenging. So how do you kind of communicate that and increase adoptability? I think the best way is for us to, as data scientists, have better partnerships with physicians. Meet them where they are. I have spent some time in the last 6 months actually going to talk to physicians and see what they do in their care. I think a lot of data scientists, and I'm guilty as well, really get caught up in the technical aspects of data science and really think it's fun. But we need to put our work out there to be useful. And so I think that's a real challenge. Opportunities, again, around data, I think we have an opportunity, I think it's going to be hard, but to really increase data liquidity, talk about data, really encourage and promote putting different types of data sets together. I think another opportunity that is perhaps not particularly a data science opportunity, but I really want to touch on communication. I think it's very important as data scientists to have really strong communication skills and be able to really explain our work in a very consumable way. A lot of the people that I talk to in terms of who are healthcare providers, I love to see your ROC curve, but they don't really care about a ROC curve. We do, but they really want to know, what does this number mean? How is it valuable to me? How is it valuable to what's going to happen to this patient in the future and right now at the point of care? And we've got to really get a lot more disciplined and really increase our communication of what our outputs are. So I'll end that there.
All right. Let's go to Robert next and follow up with what we were talking about right there, which is how would you encourage the audience, entrepreneurs, data scientists, to work with healthcare systems? You're a huge care provider in the state. You've got massive amounts of research going on. You've got your own people doing some amazing work in this category. What are the pitfalls that you're seeing as it relates to data science, and then how would someone work with you guys?
So that's a very long question. And I also want to understand how you knew my middle name.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Which is Robert.
Your mom called.
Okay, is that right? That actually doesn't surprise me. Let me start out by saying that if you are a data scientist and are looking for an industry to embed yourself into, if you're interested in interesting, complicated data, multivariable sorts of problems to solve, and you want to work with really smart people, physicians are scientists too, right? Healthcare is for you, so long as you are willing to put up with incredibly dirty and incomplete data, a somewhat shocking lack of data standards, and are willing to work with people who demand that you show them your work. Healthcare is for you. If you tick all those boxes, healthcare is for you. Now to the question, so the healthcare folks in the audience I'm sure have heard of the triple aim or the quadruple aim. It's a almost cliche status now in healthcare, which is that the problems that healthcare faces, is around improving the quality of care, reducing the cost of that care, improving the patient experience in the healthcare system, and the quadruple aim is to improve the joy of practice among the physician community, which draws class in the IT shop as well. But is a real thing. Physician burnout is a real thing, and the frustration that clinicians have dealing with an EMR is a very real barrier to the quality of the data that you guys want to deal with. So I would think if you're looking for a problem, think of the quadruple aim, because if you can present your problem as a partial solution into any of those areas, you got a much better chance of getting an audience for that. Just at a high level, kind of general examples, and I'll relinquish stuff.
Is there a cost threshold, like if I save you 15%, like the insurance company on television, is that the magic number, or is there a magic number?
I really don't think there's a magic number. 42. That is, if there are any Douglas Adams fans. No, but you got to show your work, whatever it is. If you're really focusing on cost problems, whether it's from a sort of population health perspective or an individual stay in a hospital, showing the line, the cost going down is the slope of the curve may not matter as much as really demonstrating that you're going to save cost. cost.
And do you think it's more important for your system today to save the cost or to grow revenue?
So there is the AAA. The sentiment is that it's the cost savings that are going to matter the most. We've long been a volume business, right, in healthcare. The more patients you see, the more money you get. That model is supposed to be changing. It's not changing nearly as quickly as people have predicted that it would. So the pressure is all on the cost side.
Interesting. Give us a quick definition of population health. Because as I go across the country, I've seen more definitions of population health than anything else I've seen. So just in case somebody's new to that term, is that the population you're at risk for, or are you thinking more broader community?
So Emory says yes to both those ideas. So the idea of population health is a focus not just on the care of an individual patient, but to be able to manage an entire population. It very much has grown out of the Accountable Care Organization, which is part of the healthcare legislation for the last 10 years or so. And from a cost perspective, the idea is that you don't get paid for your volume business, you get paid based on the quality of your care. It's the old HMO idea, really, rebranded to a certain extent. So the idea of population health is to be able to use analytics, high order data science, low order, whatever it might be, to understand the health of the group of patients that you serve. Emory does have these contracts with payers that are focused on incentives for that particular subset of the overall Emory population. But the approach really is that all Emory patients, should be in that cohort. Right? The larger the cohort, the better one is providing.
All right, so we're trending on Twitter, right? So make sure you're using all the social media, tag ATL Connect, okay, in this. And also, I tell my students at Belmont, we teach a 14-week HIT accelerator course as well, that connect with the speakers tonight, right? So go look up their bios. All of these people are super accomplished in what they're doing and really leaders in their field. So take a couple minutes and do that as well. All right, so Dr. Sweta, I'm not gonna guess your middle name, but help us understand what you're doing to train this next generation, and if somebody wants to come back, what programs are you guys running today to help with that?
Right. Thank you. So let me start with the health IT capital of the nation, which is of course Atlanta. All of us know about that. Yeah. So when we sort of state our claim that Atlanta is the health IT capital of the nation, one of the things that sparked with that is the workforce gap. Right, so the then Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle brought the academicians together with the industry and said, well, you need to work together to maybe fill this gap, because healthcare informatics is growing. It's one of the fastest growing things like most of us established, but we don't have enough people trained to actually continue the momentum of growth. So with that, we started the Healthcare Management Informatics program at Kennesaw State. It's really the only program in the state of Georgia that provides a degree in Healthcare Management Informatics, and we are really proud of that. So our students really come from a variety of disciplines, because this is one place where it's truly a melting pot, right? So you bring in people with mega healthcare backgrounds. So we have physicians and nurses and pharmacists and people with a lot of lift in the healthcare field, and we sort of put them together with people who have mega technical backgrounds. So these could be people who have background in statistics or technology or have interest in data science, and we sort of put them together because one of the things that has happened rapidly in healthcare is that we have sort of pushed technology in healthcare, and we have sort of assumed that both sides will begin to work together and will begin to speak the same language. Well, that hasn't happened. As we can see, well, most of the EHRs that hit the market in the beginning, there was a mega, almost a mismatch between what the workflow of the physicians and the providers were and with what the EHRs were providing. Because, well, the technical team that created those systems did really good with what made sense to them. But that did not make sense or reflect the workflows of what was happening in healthcare. So we wanted to put the two together to make sure they understand each other, and one is not speaking French while the other is speaking Chinese. So they can actually understand each other and begin to work with each other to move the needle on health informatics. So that's one aspect of that. So of course, we give them the skill set in the context of healthcare, which I think Lindsay alluded to when she said, well, the context is important and you have to be able to communicate. So you could be a really great data scientist, but if you cannot take those numbers and crunch it up and make sure that you can speak to the CEOs of these companies and speak to them in a way that makes sense to them. So, well, it's this data or this particular variable is correlated to that particular variable. Well, what does that mean to me? And I am the CEO of the company. What does that mean? How can I actually reduce the chances of comorbidities? What can I do to reduce the chances of somebody coming into my hospital and getting infected with something that they did not have coming in? So those are things that you have to have the context of healthcare, and then the big aspect of informatics and data analytics, which we sort of instill with, I think Vic mentioned about Python and R, because these are open source, and of course, you have to have a little bit of SAS. It has to be sprinkled into everything. And then the concept of being able to manage and communicate and lead and inspire. So we take these three pillars and we put them together. And one of the really big aspects of the program is the ability to be able to engage with accomplished people like all of you. Because they are not, if you think of a supply chain, these are people who are going to come in, get the skill sets, and eventually be able to go contribute in your companies, in your environment. They're not going to come work for me, I hope not. So they have to be able to meet and engage with people who they are going to be working for and begin to understand their challenges. Well, a really big aspect of the program is engaging with the industry that you'll be working for, that you will be contributing towards. So capstones and industry engagement and being able to work on real-world projects are a big aspect of the program, and that's one of the reasons why we sort of complemented the degree with the consortium of healthcare management and informatics. And speaking to Bruce and Michael, we have a really big, almost a really strong potential of health informatics to grow in Atlanta and of course Nashville. But we want to be able to have this consortium where universities and big academic institutions in Atlanta sort of put their potentials together and build this from grounds up. So Emory is doing really amazing work in biostat. There is nobody that can actually come anywhere close to them in the greater Atlanta area. We're trying to move the needle in the healthcare delivery. And of course, there's Georgia Tech that's doing amazing work in biomedical engineering, but if we can put it together in a consortium, and we have launched that consortium from our perspective, but we would like to sort of grow it, and if any of you are interested in working with us, please do reach out to me. And we have a few of our people are in the audience somewhere, and I'm sure they're here.
They're at the bar.
They're at the bar, as always. We follow instructions really well. So please do reach out to us, and I'll be happy to engage with you further. I see some familiar faces who sit on my board and are my industry partners. Chrissa is one of them, and I hunt her down always. But yeah, that's where we are right now.
Let's turn our attention to Michael and the physician. So, former practice manager. I was always amazed when I talked to physician leaders at their practice and the lack of business training that they had. So we're expecting these physicians to be awesome clinicians, great business people, and now we want them to be data scientists and consume all this information. So, Michael, how do you do it? And what's going on? What are we doing to get more physicians? Because as I look at the physician shortage, it looks pretty bleak 2030 and beyond. So.
Yeah, well, I'm a Ph.D. basic scientist, so I just sequence genomes, because that's a really easy problem. But I have to say, I think, if you think about Emory and the Woodward Health Sciences Center, what is our primary mission? Our mission is research, education, and healthcare. And our reason for existence is that we have to innovate and change faster. And we're doing that through research, we're doing that through education, by educating the next generation of physicians. Data science is actually impacting all aspects of our institution. So from the very basic research where, in my laboratory, in my work with my colleagues, we write code in this archaic language called C that probably none of you actually know about unless you're, you're ancient like me. But, we write code that map genomes and find variants and identify the causes of disease. We train physicians. They have a discovery component of their education where they actually do research in laboratories in the clinic, where this is actually an essential part of their education. We have other physicians who are really using AI to sort of say, can we predict sepsis? Can we collect all the data from the ICU that we don't ever actually normally collect, all the machines that go bing in there? And it turns out you can actually collect all that data and actually make sepsis predictions much earlier than the clinical presentation of sepsis and actually really change outcomes and save patients' lives. And so that's the sort of thing at Emory that can be a real game changer, that application of research to change the practice in our very large healthcare system is sort of the key reason for our existence, and I think is the thing that we're doing right now to try to adapt very quickly. So because you might imagine, how do we compete against other healthcare systems, or why do we even exist? And it has got to be that we have to evolve more quickly and take discoveries from basic science labs or from clinical translational labs and get them to evolve our healthcare system very quickly. Because if we don't, we're going to lose. Because universities are a little more bureaucratic, there's additional costs. We will be outcompeted by sort of for-profit companies that have simpler systems.
So Michael said a really important thing. Did y'all hear that? It's all about saving lives, right? So if we can just get our data science community focused on saving lives, and that's what we do with this data and research, we all win, right? So thank you. And thanks for all that you guys are doing. Emory's a great university, and your tentacles reach all the way up to Nashville. So lots of folks at Vanderbilt are also at Emory.
If I could say one thing, I'm the PI at Emory of the All of Us Research Program, which is an NIH-funded effort to recruit 1 million participants to be followed for 10 years. It's a huge national cohort effort.
To identify them, right?
And the individual cohorts, well, the data set will be de-identified and will be subject for research, but individual participants will get return of value, so they will get all their data back, they'll get their genome sequenced ultimately, they'll get ancestry, other sorts of things that are coming down the road. We are recruiting at Emory right now, all of us, .emory.edu. We welcome everyone, 18 and older. Is the current, so if you're interested, just go on that website, put your information in, and one of my folks from my team will be contacting you.
So we'll have 400 new
We can send that out too.
That would be great.
We'll send that out.
Excellent.
Very good. So a lot of us, how many people are in enterprise? Either startups, companies, all right, some commercial entities. So Chrissa, tell us, how do you bring your product to market? What exciting things are you going to do next?
Yeah, that's a great question. Hi, everyone. So I'm the founder of Patientory, and we are, I would say, an emergent type of population health management solution that's more or less using emergent technology, blockchain, and cryptocurrencies to solve a lot of the issues we've discussed today. So Ted discussed, healthcare being in the US $6 trillion, but we see that by 2022, healthcare is a global issue, which is going to be more or less over $10 trillion in the next 2 years. So if you look back at 2017, the topic of the World Economic Forum was, we're in this fourth industrial revolution that is going to evolve around data. And how are we going to be able to get access of these large amounts of data, between organizations? So we look at this issue of data interoperability and data liquidity, and we can use a technology that's blockchain, because it's been out since 2008, more or less, with the emergence of Bitcoin. But how can we use this underlying technology to power a lot of that data interoperability, transmission of information, and that's where we're focused. focus. So with Patientory, we've built a natural blockchain network. Our goal is to create a consortium of entities, healthcare institutions to integrate with electronic medical records on the consumer side. We're collecting, as you would say, social determinants of health data, IoT data, such as your Apple Health Watch and your Fitbit, to aggregate all that information, then partner with companies to mine that information and make it useful to the end users and actionable. So it's definitely we're at the leading edge of technology, the cutting edge of technology, but we're focused on, again, creating health outcomes, better health outcomes for the industry from both a clinical and financial model perspective.
So does the care plan of the future really involve not only your health status, but your financial status?
Absolutely, yeah. And even with the tokenization model that we have with digital currencies, you have the ability to make payments and track payments. A lot of insurers now are using blockchain in revenue cycle management. So being able to really port that transaction in a digital form and then actually have it as a store of value, we're going to see a lot of this value creation created in the ecosystem.
Great. So Dr. Kumar, 8 is my favorite number at the craps table, so I'm glad you got that to 8 steps. As such, right, simplification still looks pretty complex. In your book, how do we simplify the storytelling around data science?
I think, like Lindsay, right? Like Lindsay was saying before, RLC curves mean a lot to data scientists and PR curves too, but if you're talking to hospital executives or CEOs, they're probably not interested. They have so many other things that they're worrying about. They might, you might have to use different words. One of the companies I worked for previously, they would just use the word accuracy and to make it less intimidating, I think. Also, I think it's important to convince people that we're not here to replace doctors. We're just here to help, assist, work together, and have people not be intimidated that way also. And there's a lot of hype right now about machine learning, predictive analytics. So there's a lot of stuff that we can't do as well as that data scientists and machine learning cannot do as good as physicians or humans, and just recognizing that and I think being aware of that is important.
So quick little follow-up. So I'm a big fan in disruption coming from removing the friction between the data scientist and the physician. Since you've worn both hats, do you see some strategies that we can use to reduce that friction so we could work for the common good of the patient?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it is about knowing the other part of the equation. I think data scientists are used to knowing a lot, and physicians are too. So when you pit them against each other, it's kind of like, wait, why are you telling me how to do my job? I know it better than you, and stuff like that. So maybe if we offered some training for physicians in data science or machine learning. We already have biostatistics, but maybe a little more. Or maybe if we had data scientists say, okay, your model predicts a bad outcome. This is what it's like, on the human side when you have to explain something bad to a family, so they can understand each other better and see the other side of the equation better.
And I think it's innate in physicians. They have a research mind. They want to get to the right diagnosis, and they want to provide all the information and care that they can to their patients. So
yeah, I would say I think one of the challenges data science has is, and this is the one in any science where you're generating massive amounts of data, is that you search for confirmatory hypotheses. You search for data that confirms what you believe to be true. And the way science works is a very influential paper called Strong Inference, and the notion that we think about science as a scientist, we actually devise alternative multiple hypotheses, and we try to reject hypotheses. because we're very convinced about rejecting hypotheses. And so I would think in data science, one of the things we ought to be doing more of is rather than asking if the data fits some hypothesis that we think we know how the world operates, actually try to devise alternative hypotheses, and can we reject mechanisms from the data that we say, this can't be what's going on, because I think that will help then allow us to provide confidence that the confirmation we see is in fact perhaps a causative one rather than simply a correlation.
Really good. All right.
Can I make a comment?
Yep.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And thinking about sort of bridging this divide between the data scientist and the physician, I think one approach that we have taken is you can't underestimate the value of descriptive statistics. You showed the graph of how you build sort of your data science infrastructure from descriptive all the way to prescriptive. When I started at Axial as a data scientist, I don't know what everyone's experience is, but I wasn't doing exactly what I thought I would be doing in the beginning. It was definitely a lot of just basic measurements from the data, a lot of descriptors being reported out, not really building data science models. And I think that one way that we can really bridge the gap is to really know the data, have some very powerful, perhaps evidence-based measures that are valuable to physicians and really get them comfortable with incorporating kind of data-driven information within their decision care workflow. And then we can start kind of pushing the envelope a little bit and sort of challenging some of maybe the preconceived notions that physicians or other care providers have about sort of the way the world is, and maybe the data says something else, and kind of bring them along with your story. And sometimes we might be wrong, right? Like we've said that data is messy, especially healthcare data. I'll give a real world example. So we deal with opioids, and opioid addiction is oftentimes treated through pharmacotherapy methodologies, such as medication-assisted therapy. And we had a physician tell us, patients are never on MAT and a pain-related opioid at the same time. But we actually saw that 15% of the patients in the data actually received a MAT prescription and an opioid prescription concurrently. So, we kind of had to have a dialogue back and forth, like, why is that happening? And you have to always ask yourself, is the data wrong? Are we getting incorrect data? So I think really starting the dialogue through really some basic measurements and descriptive statistics, and then starting to push the envelope with more, I won't say robust, but more complex solutions that we all feel are a little more data sciencey, I think is a way that we can bridge that gap.
Yeah, I might add one thing, and then we'll get over here as well, but one of the things I learned about starting companies that also I see similar in data science is create that MVP and get it in front of a clinician sooner rather than later, right? So you don't want to waste your time doing research and bringing in more and more data, buying data, purchasing data, investing data, if you don't know that you have the right solution that's gonna solve the problem. So really good point. So.
I was going to add a practical consideration about getting buy-in from physicians. Physicians are the busiest people ever. And if you can't interact with them in their normal flow of work, you're never going to get their attention. And you mentioned FIRE. That really, so yes, you need a believable, provable, show your work kind of model. But you also need to get the data to them when they need it. And until FIRE, the only way to do that was to work for Cerner or Epic or Allscripts because they own the EMR. FIRE presents an opportunity for people like you all to really get the data to the people who need it when they need it. So learn the data, learn R and Python, all that. Learn FIRE too.
Great point. So when we built our joint replacement model, I presented it at 6:30 a.m. at the Bone and Joint Institute because I could only get 15 minutes with 2 orthopedic surgeons at 6:30 a.m. So you got to go to their place, sit down, be ready to explain, and be able to simplify and tell that story. You see that as well, Chrissa?
Yeah, no, and we're using Smart on Fire, HL7 integrations as well, because that is the future when we speak about electronic medical records. Not only interoperability, but the ability to really gain access to that information from, especially when you're dealing with different systems. And we've seen a lot of the API vendors, familiar with Redox, and others like Sensor that are helping to do that as well. So, it's definitely going to help in the progression of getting access and meaningful insights into that information.
All right, speed round, and then we're going to open it up for your questions that you've been dying to ask this panel all night long, maybe all week. So speed round, we're going to start with you, Bruce. Like, the biggest, coolest thing you've seen this year in data science?
Well, see, I'm the guy that's in the basement shoveling coal into the data factory, and the cool stuff's happening many floors above me. So the sepsis model that Mike mentioned at Emory is quite cool. They trained the model with several 100,000 patients out of our EMR. They have a 35+ variable model that they feed. They have a dashboard that shows in and now data is streaming in from the ICU monitors and showing near real time patients at risk for developing sepsis.
The cool stuff doesn't happen without the data janitor. Big fan. Data architects, the next big sexy job.
I'm going to change my business card
What's the one cool thing? Blew your mind.
Blew my mind. No, I'm still thinking on, I know this is UK based, but looking at what DeepMind has done with NHS, them coming out of the breach and basically how they're helping them to better this more or less national health system. They don't have the complexity as the US with a lot of the different database systems. So definitely, in awe of what they've been able to do.
And my best learning comes from other industries and other countries. Yeah. Go look at what Estonia is doing. They digitize the whole country, like one fell swoop. So it's pretty darn cool.
And speaking of international, so you put me on the spot with choosing one, and I can't pick one. But there are a couple of really cool things that we saw this year. One, how many of you think that the physician insurance industry is one of the sexy and cool industries? Okay, so we've been working with one of the largest physician insurance companies in Southeast, and they have been at the forefront of taking a lot of the data that they see on the far end. So they see data when things go wrong. So they're actually trying to take that data and combine it with a lot of data upstream to create patient safety models and to train their physicians on it, almost like training physicians to be good drivers. So if you're going onto this path, it will alert you much before you actually end up into a lawsuit. And you will end up into a lawsuit if you don't change your practice, or if you continue to doing this surgery at 6 a.m. in the morning at this particular location. So I thought that was really, really cool coming out from a physician insurance, like as dry as it gets. And the second, of course I'm sorry about that, but the second is in the, how many of you knew that I was from India? Oh, come on. So India is of course, one of the, like a small country with billions of people living in it. If you're talking of resource constraints, that's one country that has the biggest resource constraint. So I was asked to consult with one of the state government and one of the private entities to build to take. And if you think of data that we have, you quadruple it, and that's the kind of data that they have. And we were trying to build systems that will allow physicians in the rural sectors to actually be able to take some of the models that have been built and allow them to make decisions and allow them and really empower the first line of healthcare workers to make decisions, to do things that we do routinely, but that they have not learned or have not practiced, but now they can do because we can provide them those data models. And I thought that was phenomenal. So thank you.
Yeah, great story.
So I'll issue one challenge. So Todd, you had a slide where you talked about behavioral determinants of health, social determinants of health, and the importance of that. And I've seen talks similar to yours where there's all this data, and that's what we're really assessing. And I think one of the things we really fall down on as patients and individuals is actually asking about our family history. And I never see that on that slide, but your family history is a natural genetic experiment. And it is astounding. We train doctors to take a family history, and patients don't know their history, the health history of their close relatives even. And that can be have a big impact on health outcomes. And so if we could get patients to simply ask members of their family, tell me more about your family history. Let me know, what did grandma actually die of? And those sorts of questions and family discussions are actually really critical. And I think if we did more of that, we could actually improve health quite dramatically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think to add on to that, I won't list a cool new technology, but one thing that's really resonated in my life recently is I visited some addiction clinics and actually talked to some patients who were in recovery for opioid addiction. And we sat down with them and asked them, you know, what is good quality care for you? You know, why do you keep coming back to this clinic? And their responses were, the doctors are nice to me. I love sitting down and talking to people. They give me a meal ticket, and I like to go get a sandwich. And I think often, and I'm guilty of this as data scientists, we make some really hardcore assumptions about these patients' lives based on an administrative claim record. And it really challenged me to think a lot more broadly about how I practice data science.
This isn't necessarily related to healthcare, but you might have seen on the internet a lot of these artificial faces and text generation. GANs is the word. And I was thinking maybe someone could use them to build like artificial health records so that we could have more data to experiment with and work on. So I think GANs is a big improvement. You know, I think seeing some of the faces, the quality of the faces that these models were able to produce is pretty unbelievable. So.
Excellent. All right, so questions. Don't be shy. Whoa. All right, we're going to have to go fast, rapid fire. Keep your answer short. There you go. Oh, okay.
Okay. So let's say you have an awesome team of data scientists and analytics. Your teams at a hospital work on projects. Projects need to be funded, so you have to budget for them. The team can do anything. You can predict readmissions, no-shows, you name it. But the ideas are coming from the team. How do you get requests to flow in and to be the norm for doctors and physicians to actually know what to ask so we can work on the projects that they are interested in?
So is there a magic wand to collect all the great ideas in Atlanta and bring those together as a community that we could all work on? Or is this a big opportunity we just discussed?
We're working on it a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think one of the things is incentives. Where, you know, a lot of physicians are always interested in saving lives, but a lot of the other people in the world are interested in just saving money. So if the incentives saves the hospital money for doing something, then that's probably what they want you to predict for them. So,
well, and the triple aim, this, you can't underestimate this. So access, cost, and quality, and then you added a fourth.
Physician lawyer practice.
Oh yes, physician burnout. Anything you can reduce clinician, physician burnout will have an immediate ROI on most organizations. Did you have something you wanted to add?
I just want to say, I just don't think there's any substitute for talking to people and building relationships and building trust. If you want to know where you can impact and where is there a job to be done that's not being done, or where is there a job being done poorly, you go out and you talk to people.
In the back.
Hi, yeah. So I came into this talk not knowing a lot about data science, actually, but I was kind of curious, no one mentioned anything about epidemiology, so I was wondering how that kind of relates to data science and how you guys are working with epidemiologists towards those goals.
Yeah, no, I think epidemiology is essential. It's an essential component. We obviously have a Round School of Public Health. We have great epidemiologists. Actually, my wife is an epidemiologist. And so this is actually a really critical thing. And I think if we're going to get smart about health, we have to move beyond sort of the simple notions that health or disease are caused by, it's just deterministic genetics. You get a mutation and you're going to get the disease and that's it. Or, you got a disease because you had bad lifestyle or low SES. I mean, these are complex disorders that impact large populations, and so epidemiology is actually really critical because we're trying to have to think carefully about how we design the studies, be conscious of where there may be bias, thinking about how we, what are the sources of bias and how might we be misled. One of the strategic initiatives at Emory right now is actually, that I'm leading, is actually to build something called the cohort of the future, which is a large cohort representative of the entire population of Georgia. And how would this cohort evolve and adapt over time so that we could sort of do serial sampling? Because every year the population of Georgia changes. And so if you collect a cohort today, it's not going to necessarily represent Georgia 10 years from now. But could you build a system that would actually allow you to have a cohort that changed over time and use sort of epidemiological ideas? So Tim Lash, as our new chair of epidemiology at Emory, brought up some of these notions. And so this is one of the areas that we're really looking at investing in and pursuing in a research context right now.
Right, another question here.
Yes, so I am actually a bedside nurse at Emory Midtown, and I'm working with data on my unit. And the question that I have, or that things I haven't seen so much in the healthcare industry, is that we collect a lot of data on patients, but not so much on workflow. Why did the supplies run out? How come I had to wait 3 hours for a med to be delivered? Just lots of things that end up impacting quality of care, end up impacting time, discharges, money, cost. Where's the, the only place I've seen so far is when I had to take my dad to Stanford Hospital, nurses are wearing trackers. And so I'm just interested if you guys have seen, being in the industry more of data, have you seen where we're trying to make the workflow delivery, tracking of individual sections better rather than, patients matter, but we have to track the workers and all the things that go in.
So I'll try to take a brief stab at that. So there are actually initiatives. A lot of the venture capital people who are interested in healthcare are looking at questions like that around cost. Emory at the Clifton campus a few years ago in the ED did a study of patient flow in and out, trying to, the ED physicians will kill me, but it's a factory, right? You have a product and they go through the floor and they're on the assembly line, and either they go home or they go upstairs, to the hospital. And so it's a lot of an industrial engineering kind of approach to that. So some of that's happened in the ED. Similarly, there's emergency department. Right? IT and healthcare is the nexus of all acronyms. There's no other point in the world that has more acronyms than healthcare and IT. There's a startup out of Palo Alto, actually, in Stanford, a company now called Qventus, that's doing that same sort of patient flow kind of work on the floors to understand both and to try to predict the staffing required in advance, right before they call you in the middle of the night. Say, oh God, we need a nurse. So that stuff is happening, and it's really focused on the kind of the cost reduction part of the program here. I don't know if anybody has anything else to add.
All right, we got two more questions here.
Hi, this question is for maybe all of the startups where we're trying to get into healthcare. So there's a lot of regulations and compliance requirements for any other, if you compare healthcare with any other industry for all the startups. It's just a question for all startups. Like how to, deal with all this compliance while even presenting any MVP one to any of the healthcare institution or, venture capitals.
Yeah, so I would speak from our experiences. Being a startup, you don't have probably the liquidity or funds to hire a large healthcare compliance company, but there are incubators and accelerators out there, and as well as technical resources that AWS can also offers or Google Cloud offers to make sure that you're building your product or your MVP within HIPAA compliant constraints. So there's definitely resources there that you can definitely talk after to learn more about that startups should be thinking about and should be developing on.
All right, last question.
So this one's to Dr. Sneha, but others in the panel can jump in on it. You alluded to that there was, I'll generalize it as domain experts, as well as data scientists, and one of the things you saw as a need was to kind of get these two parties together such that you can answer the question, is this number meaningful? So the model produced some sort of model or some sort of result, but the question still is there. Does it mean anything? Is it useful? What's Kennesaw University doing to sort of bring these two, and it's almost intergenerational at this point, the young people with data science knowledge versus folks with industry experience. How are you bringing them together in a meaningful way to kind of meld those two skills?
Great question. So one of the things when I talked about the audience for the program, they're not necessarily, so they could be people who have a lot of, so we have physicians and nurses and pharmacists and all of those, but then we also have, like I said, these are not necessarily data scientists, but they could be people coming fresh out of undergrad with an interest in data science. So data science, although has been around for some time, it's still in its infancy, so to speak. So they're not necessarily data scientists with 2 decades of experience, but they have an interest in that field. But if you have an interest in that field, the context becomes really important, especially in healthcare, because it's one of the most regulated industries in the US. And it's like, how many of you were around when the ERP started taking, how many of you know the term again? The enterprise resource planning softwares, right? So, at that time, and the people who were doing really well with the ERPs were the ones who also understood the workflow and the processes of the organizations and how things move from one stack to the other. And the people who are working in various segments, one of them could be financials or accounting, you had to be an accountant. You had to understand finances. So in the same way, if you're going to be working as a health informatician, you have to understand healthcare and to have that context, and then to be able to overlay. So data science is a tool. It could be agnostic to multiple different industries. What we do is we give you the background in healthcare and give you the skills in data science so you can meld the two together and address problems that are specific to healthcare.
All right, so I'm going to do a quick summary, right? What I heard today is soft skills, patient lives. That's where we need to focus a lot of our attention as a data science industry. And also, if it's not readily apparent here, we really need commercial educational partnerships to accelerate what's going on in this industry. So thank our panel, rock stars.